Welcome back to another edition of Stuff You Don't Usually See. I'm Jay Sokol, and you know how this works. We, every week, record a segment for a group of local radio stations, but we are shooting a little video so you can see what that looks like behind the scenes. Returning guest, Police Chief Billy Couch. How you doing, Chief?
Doing great.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming back in here. I thought I probably scared you all sufficiently after the first time. So here's what I want to start with, because this is timely, both in the community and with me personally. Let's talk about the sort of epidemic of catalytic converter thefts. What are you guys seeing?
We are, like many communities, we are dealing with thefts of catalytic converters. We have been seeing that for a while now. I think it started off maybe when it first began a few years ago. It was probably small groups working in the area. Now we have seen it grow. There's a lot more people actively involved in that. So we're seeing more frequently reported numbers of catalytic converters stolen. It's one of those crimes that is a big impact on the consumer that has to go in and repair their vehicle and spend that money to repair those things, whereas the theft of that item really doesn't result, the metals within it don't result in a whole lot of profit, but obviously there's enough that it's lucrative for some of the criminal element to target vehicles with certain catalytic converters.
Yeah. Well, as a recent victim of this, I can tell you that it is expensive in terms of repairs, but there doesn't seem like there's much you can do to deter it, because the theft can happen so quickly. I've heard stories of it happening at people's homes, at people's workplaces, when they go into a restaurant, when they are receiving medical treatment at the hospital. I mean, it seems frustrating for anyone who drives one of these vehicles that is highly prized and highly targeted. I mean, what in the world do we do?
Yeah, you are right. It's happening throughout our community. Residential areas, oftentimes it'll occur at night, but we're seeing it during the daytime at strip centers or restaurants, businesses.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's obviously something that we're aware of. We do have a number of times we've stopped and made arrests on individuals that are committing those crimes. It is a little bit more difficult when you recover the catalytic converters. Oftentimes you won't find markings on them to identify it back to a vehicle, so you kind of have to wait for the report and then connect the dots of where that one came from. Yeah. And sometimes that carries over into whether it be the city of Bryan or on university property. We all share these same instances where they're being taken, so it's a big deal.
I've heard of some people engraving their VIN number on the part. I had one friend tell me something about applying a certain kind of paint or paint color to it. I didn't know anything about that. I know there are dealerships that will sell you and install a protective shield that doesn't necessarily prevent the theft, but it may make a would-be thief think twice before hitting your vehicle if they run into that, because that would cost them precious seconds. Do you know of anything else besides those sorts of things?
No, I mean, those are certainly things that you could consider. I think an identifying mark or a number to where you could relate it back to your property would help us in a criminal proceeding, obviously, if we recover it.
Right.
I don't know how that would work at a resale shop where they're kind of under the table accepting these things anyway. So. Yeah. It would help us in the event that we stopped a vehicle, because we have stopped vehicles before and recovered a number of catalytic converters without any markings, and then had to spend considerable time trying to figure out where they came from. So yeah, those things, the shield would absolutely be a good idea. Whether it's worth an investment, sort of like insurance, right?
Right.
You buy it and you hope it helps to keep it, but you don't know whether it works or not, right? So.
Any evidence of these resale operations being located here in Bryan College Station?
It's unlikely that we have any locally in Bryan College Station. We do have, we know of some that are outside the area in Houston and other large cities. There's a lot of pressure on those resale shops. I've heard rumor that they're even taking some of the ones stolen locally out of state in order to move them now due to the pressure. But yeah, this is occurring in every community, and the ones with the resale shops certainly have created a lot more pressure on those that may be accepting these and fencing them.
Yeah. I'm going to switch topics here. I get some alerts on my phone, thanks to to you guys being generous and letting me know when sometimes significant activities or calls come in. And a call that seems to be coming in consistently, at least once a week, sometimes more, are auto pedestrian accidents. I think you guys end up, and the fire department ends up, responding to a bunch of these things. And my curiosity is, where does the fault usually lie? Is it usually with a driver who is distracted in some way, or does it tend to be the pedestrian's fault who also is not watching properly? Talk to me about this scenario, because I really feel like it's happening.
We do see quite a few of those accidents. Fortunately, they're not all major accidents. Yeah. Although when you have pedestrian hit, I guess it's always considered major. But it's a mix. You have there are parts of our community where there are just a lot of pedestrians moving, and that of course leads to a pretty high chance of something happening between a vehicle and a pedestrian. Yeah. And it goes both ways. You oftentimes will have someone who may be making a right turn and they've checked, and then they checked back this way, and then by the time they came back, a student had jumped out in front of them. So we had a contact. Oftentimes not significant, but it really is a blend. I think all pedestrians, because we have so much pedestrian traffic in the community, I think we have really good systems of crosswalks and lighting to illustrate when it's clear to walk, But I think everyone tends to kind of get in a hurry, and when you see them on campus, oftentimes there's not those obstructions of crosswalks and lights. They just kind of move about on campus. Yeah. Sometimes that mentality carries over into the city streets, where they need to tighten it up a little bit and follow those crossing signs. But it's hard to say where that blame would lie. It probably could go both ways. Distracted driving is pretty much an issue we see daily on other crashes, so it certainly would blend into the pedestrian accidents as well. Yeah,
that's a scary one. It that call seems to hit my phone a lot. So didn't know the cause. That seems to happen more often than not. Switching to another topic again, I know that College Station Police Department relies on a variety of technologies to do what you do. And there probably are technologies that our residents aren't even aware of that are highly effective. So I didn't know if you could maybe talk about one or two of those things that you feel like would be of interest, and even mention if there are some technologies that you don't use as a department and why that may be.
I think technology is good and bad. Sometimes the new technology comes online and we tie into it and we start utilizing it, but it creates more back-end work trying to maintain it and make sure it's always up and running. And people do come to expect that they have access into different systems. As far as community technology, it's hard for me to just kind of come up with what those look like. We use a lot of stuff within the cars, right? So we have a lot of access through our computers, our camera systems, our radars. I mean, everything's kind of integrated now into the cars through a computer system. Now, as far as our crime view, as far as if somebody wanted real-time stats for, say, their neighborhood, they could go into our crime view and get a pretty good picture of a neighborhood. Sometimes I'll get those phone calls from parents that, hey, my child's moving down, going to be a freshman in school. Yeah. Can you tell me about this neighborhood? Well, I'll refer them over to crime view, and they can kind of go in and see, they can pick the crime, and you can kind of see. In our community, most of what you're going to see are property crimes. That's probably the number one crime, and has been for as long as I've probably been here. Sure. We have a lot of burglaries. We have students that have nice things, but as far as other technology, that I'm not real clear on what it is that we're maybe missing with that would extend to our residents. Anything you can do to steer me better on something you thought of?
Just once in a while, and I can't point to anything specific, but once in a while I will hear about something that some tool that your investigators have used, and I'll think, I didn't even know we had that. That's amazing. And so I didn't know if there was something top of mind.
Yeah, I mean, you made me think of we use a device called a Pharaoh, and it's a crime scene tool, and this isn't really something the community would ever be aware of unless they were involved in a criminal case and could see the value of what this does. But in the past, we would often have to spend considerable amount of time shooting from different points to build a picture of what that crime scene kind of looked like. Well, now if we have that, we have a 360-degree scanner that we'll put in a room, and it scans the room and it builds a picture of that room, and then it places measurement points for all of those items. If you had, say, a knife that was used in a crime that was in the crime scene, or you had blood evidence, it'll pinpoint all of that information for you and then draw that picture out. It's a really unique piece of equipment that we've acquired in the last few years and been using on our big crime scenes.
Huh. And so rather than relying on a crime scene photographer, so to speak, who you hope gets every shot you need from every angle, this takes care of it for you in a more precise way.
Well, we'll still take photographs of the items just like we normally would, but in the meantime, you set that scanner up and it pulls in the picture of everything in that room, like measurement from bed to wall, from door to bed. I mean, things that you may want to see in a crime or in a trial later, you have a better picture of it. It was a rather expensive piece of equipment that came out, but once we were able to acquire it, we've really gained a lot from it.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, you and I and directors in all the departments are beginning to put together our draft budgets for FY 2023. And part of that budget process is we put together a 5-year forecast of sorts of things that we feel like we may need, whether it's equipment or positions, something like that. What are some of the things in your 5-year forecast do you believe that would benefit the College Station Police Department? Just things that you are realizing that stuff kind of changes from year to year.
Sure.
But what are you kind of penciling in that you see will be needed for the department?
Yeah, currently, I mean, we have a lot of demands in nighttime Northgate. It's a big draw of our resources. We have a full-time unit up there right now, and they're unable to handle it. So I'm having to send additional resources into Northgate for the nighttime demands. Daytime Northgate and nighttime Northgate are two very different places.
Right.
So what I don't have is have one sergeant running all of these resources, and his span of control in that dynamic environment is challenging at best. So looking at some more resources of supervision, additional resources in Northgate to help better manage that environment,
right,
and try to get better control of it. It's a tough environment. We've got about 30 bars up there, so it's pretty dynamic and pretty busy on nights.
Well, and you've got a lot of bedrooms surrounding the bars in that whole area, and you're about to get a 19-story multifamily structure, added to that area too, which affects how you guys patrol that area.
Well, we think we probably had about, in the past 5 years, 6,000 or 7,000 more beds in Northgate. So they're not even driving into the district now; they're just walking over to the district. So it has created new demand. So that's one of the areas. We talked about technology, and our cars are filled with technology, and they all come through a source of the computer, and they all kind of interface out. What I don't have is enough internal support to manage that. So when that computer has a glitch or goes down, it takes the car offline.
Right.
Well, I don't have, so any given time I may have 20% of my fleet, my patrol fleet down. Well, I can't patrol without a fleet. It's such a before it was just mechanical. We just needed to have mechanics that kind of kept the cars running.
Right.
That's the least of our concern now. It's all technology, So we'd like to have. We're looking at another tech services position, one that we can partner with our IT department on, to where they can embed them in our building, kind of to handle all of the field stuff that we have.
Yes.
So that's one of the bigger positions that's been a strain for us. And then there's always the other civilian support positions and communications center, our records division. We haven't necessarily grown those in the past few years because we've been growing the sworn police officer staff when we could to fill holes. Well, sometimes it's hard to make a records technician a priority, but it doesn't mean that they're not overworked with what they have to handle. Yeah. We get some things this year. There's always kind of things legislative that changes the city's demands, right? Well, we had some of that. A legislative change came down to records. Pretty much took a full-time employee to manage a new demand that they have to report back into the DA's office on cases. Well, we didn't expect it. We weren't ready for it, but it took a records tech out of service because now that is what they have to do.
Oh, I see.
And the city deals with that from time to time where legislative changes impact the overall picture, and it happened to us. So, a lot of demands in the organization in different areas.
Yeah. Well, while you're talking about positions, you probably have some vacancies right now that you're recruiting for. You want to give a quick recruiting pitch for what you need?
Sure, yeah. Always looking for police officers. Vacancy-wise, I got about 6 or 7 openings. We've got others in training, so we have a larger demand on us right now because of those in training aren't counting for police positions, but they're filled. But about 6 positions, police officer, always looking for police officer positions. The other one's communication operators. We have been looking for communication operators for a while. We have some programs set up. If we had working communication operators that had certificates already, we could bring them in, accelerate them, get them a little more money up front. Those positions are open. And police assistant is a new position we had 5 or 6 years ago that we added on, and it's a great position for us. It's them handling similar type calls where it doesn't need a badge and a gun to handle the call, whether it's following up on some cases or doing the initial reporting. But we have a few vacancies in our police assistant area as well. So yeah, those are certainly positions that we're always recruiting for.
Got it. Tell me about some things on your mind that I haven't asked you about, but you would love to talk about.
Well, you mentioned a little bit about communicating to the public and technology and different things, but we are bringing on, and you and I have talked about this position, our public relations coordinator started last Monday. So now that she's in the door, we're working with her to kind of get some structure as to what we want to try to do to help with internal, external communication. And I think the community will get benefit from that. It'll certainly help us internally to communicate. Can't ever communicate enough, but sometimes it doesn't always become the priority.
Right.
So I'm hoping that position will help us keep that as a priority on the forefront. So excited about that position starting up.
Excellent. Okay, last question. Has nothing to do with anything at all. You have any superstitions that you've kind of carried with you throughout your law enforcement career? Something you do before you get into your uniform, or just some routine or something that you feel luckier if you do it?
In the uniform, I probably have some checks that I do each time. I never wear the uniform without the vest, no matter where I'm going.
Okay.
But I do have a routine when I put it on to ensure that I am checked up and ready to go. When I'm dressed down right now, maybe not as much. But yeah, in uniform, I think guys probably do a bit of a sequence of checks.
You work with anybody right now? No names necessary, but who you actually watch and go, holy smokes, that's a little much. That's ridiculous.
No, I would never say ridiculous. I mean, some of the guys, they may spend a little more time in the mirror than I do, but I won't say it's ridiculous.
I just wondered. My wife and I were talking about superstitions the other day. I think the only one I have is before I get on a jet, I knock on the outside of the door before I walk through. Just give it a little.
And what does that give you? What sense of what does that give you?
It's always worked. It's
right.
Just a little good luck. I'm still here. I've survived every trip. But since I was a child, before I walk through, I give it up. And and that's my thing. If I don't do it, which I can't remember the last time I didn't, I would feel very uneasy.
No, I hear you on that. I usually say thank you to the pilot as I'm getting off. Just one thing to say, man, appreciate you getting this thing down. But
I figured in the law enforcement business, everybody's got something, something that you do it routinely because you feel lucky and you go home.
Yeah, it's so strange. You never know, I guess.
All right, think about that. If you think of one, you're going to have to let me know.
I will, absolutely.
Hey, thanks for talking to me a little bit. Really appreciate it.
I absolutely appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
You bet. And thank you guys for letting us come on and talk about the city of College Station. And that is stuff you don't usually see. And of course, I realized that I didn't do the traditional start of it. Again,